somebody help, not just anybody help. You know I need someone help.
The Duncan Duo Real Estate Show. Now, your host, Andrew Duncan.
Good morning, Tampa Bay. Here with you for another week to talk about the Tampa Bay real estate market. And we're excited to have a special guest today, the chairman and co-founder of the RE/MAX organization, Dave Liniger, is going to be with us today to be talking to us about the local real estate market. I'm so excited to have him online, have several of your questions that you've asked us that I'm going to be talking to Dave about today. And Dave, how are you?
Hey, we're doing great. Denver, Colorado is kind of a cold and beautiful morning.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys are probably a little bit throttled after the game yesterday. A lot of Tebow fans, and I'm a big one, and I know the Broncos will come back stronger next year.
You know, he's a young quarterback. That's really his first year. They'll build a team around him. He's got lots of promise. He just needs to bulk up, get a little bit bigger, and a little bit more experience.
Yeah, you know, it was exciting to see his run, and we were definitely saddened last night at the beginning of the game. But, hey, you know, great teams, that's what happens. So, well, I appreciate you coming on to talk about RE/MAX and kind of your outlook on the real estate market over the next year. Wanted to give you a quick congratulations. Voted most influential in real estate by Inman News this week.
Oh, thank you. That was very exciting. I went out to New York to get the award and got to participate with about 1,400 other people who were kind of tech savvy, and it was a lot of fun.
You know, it's been a banner year for RE/MAX. J.D. Power, #1 for buyers and sellers. You winning this award. It's got to be pretty exciting for you, back from some of the stories you told me in the 70s when you were kind of down on all fours, putting stamps on letters and really just getting started to turn it into, you know, the world's most recognizable real estate brand.
Well, you know, it was not an overnight success, and like most entrepreneurs, we started out with very little capital and little experience, but year after year, you know, 39 years later, you wake up an overnight success.
Well, it's pretty awesome. I know that it's exciting for us to be affiliated with RE/MAX, and it's been a great journey, just a couple of months of us starting up with our own office. And, you know, I saw your video this past week, your top 10 predictions for 2012. I wanted to spend some time talking about that because, you know, very rarely do our listeners have the ability to hear from someone that has such a global impact on real estate and gets to see real estate data and trends from such a broad base of areas, price points, and people. And, you know, one of the things you mentioned that I thought was really interesting was the impact that kids moving out of home or kids that have moved back home is going to have on our real estate market.
Well, you know, ordinarily in the United States, about 5 million young people age 18 to 30 are still living with their parents in some fashion. Often they're going to a local college or whatever and saving money and just have not gone out and got an apartment yet. Right now, that figure is 29 million.
That's remarkable. And I think we're seeing that. You know, we get calls about that here locally in Tampa Bay, and I think it's an interesting twist to our real estate market. And I think you're right. In your video, you actually mentioned that, you know, a lot of the parents are probably tired of the kids staying at home and ready to help them buy a house.
Well, you know, the truth of the matter is that what do you call a 27-year-old man that's living at home with mom and dad? Undateable, undesirable. I mean, where are you going to take your girlfriend? And in reality, the young people don't want to be there. They're there by financial necessity. The young people are having some of the highest unemployment rates, even college graduates. So they don't want to be there. The parents are delighted to take care of the children and help them. But in reality, everybody wants to split up, and the kids want to be out on their own.
And, you know, and I think in terms of people assisting, you know, I saw some stats recently with how often parents were assisting with down payments today. And I think it's astronomical just to see how often that's happening. I think it's just an end result of the parent saying, okay, there's never been, lower prices and better interest rates. So I can kind of give them a little bit of a jump start if they don't have the down payment money needed to get out on their own.
It seems like parents always are trying to help the younger people, and there has never been a better time to buy real estate right now, as obvious by the fact that investors have jumped in by both feet, taking advantages of prices that existed 10, 15 years ago. Investors with smart money, they see it. When consumer confidence turns around, the unemployment changes, and the world goes back to normal, prices will go up and go up very rapidly.
We talked about low interest rates a little bit, and again, astronomically low. It's amazing when you tell someone that their interest rate's going to be in threes to kind of see their mouth drop, because even though they hear it in the news and the press, when they actually see it on paper, I think it's kind of shocking, and I think it kind of wakes them up. That's really one of the best opportunities. I think so many people pay attention to price and they forget about the cost of money.
Well, the cost of money ordinarily at 7-8%, which is traditional for our industry, doubles and triples the price of the home over 30 years. Right now, when you can get in under 4% or right at 4%, it is a tremendous bargain. As inflation takes a hold in our country again, you'll be paying off the mortgage with ever cheaper dollars, and it is probably the greatest value I've ever seen. When I started in the business in the 60s, we were really amazed one day when the interest rate went from 5 1/8 to 5 1/4, and of course we haven't seen that for 40 years.
And Dave, what are some of the for the people out there that haven't been in the real estate industry to see kind of the rates as the economic cycles have changed? What have been some of the high points of the real estate interest rates you've seen?
Well, obviously, it averages out a little bit over 7 to 8% over a 40-year time period. But back in 1982, 83, we had rampant inflation, and the federal government pushed the interest rates up on mortgages to 16 to 18%.
Wow. Yeah. And again, so everyone that's out there thinking about buying a home, imagine trying to buy a home with 16 or 18% interest. You probably wouldn't be able to afford much today. You mentioned in the video rising prices. That pent-up demand, is that where you think some of that's going to come from, or do you think it's just because the real estate market is past the worst and starting to stabilize?
Well, we predicted this disaster back in 2006, and I had thought that it would be the worst real estate market we'd ever seen, and I was wrong. It was even worse than that. Over the last couple of years, we've been kind of on a sawtooth bottom, a bumpy up and down. Every time the prices get down just a little bit further, more people come into the market, more inventory comes in because of the foreclosures, and it just bounces along. We think that we have bottomed out in virtually 95% of the markets around the United States, and we're starting to see prices creep up probably in over half of the top 100 markets.
And we're starting to see that locally in the Tampa Bay area with our average price point has bumped up a little bit. And I think it's, it depends on the local area. We've got parts of town where prices are up 10% over last year, and then we've got some that are slightly down or stabilizing. I think it's interesting just to see that it is starting to kind of take the turn. And I think the impact on distressed properties, improving those processes, is going to really be at the forefront of the next couple of years. At RE/MAX, you guys have as a company, and it's something we've greatly benefited from. So if there's real estate agents out there listening to this, RE/MAX is focused on top-down short sales and building relationships with some of the big mortgage lenders to drive short sale business to agents with short sale designations is pretty phenomenal. And I think you guys see that, as a company and how important short sales, distressed properties, foreclosures are going to be over the next several years.
Well, we're not quite halfway through the entire problem yet. If you look at all the mortgages that were placed between 2004 and 2008, 6.8% of those properties have been through the foreclosure process. Title has changed, and a new buyer owns those properties. Because of the clogged pipeline of distressed properties that have been clogged up because of the Attorney General robo-signing, bureaucracy, and so on, we're about 8% more to go. So 6.8 done, 8% more to go. Tremendous opportunities for investors, tremendous opportunities for the real estate agents who are professional and have their education and understand how to handle distressed properties and distressed sellers.
It's funny because I know that as an organization, RE/MAX has more CDPE designations and more of the short sale designations than any other real estate franchise. And it seems like now that, and again, I saw some of this from the outside before I was with RE/MAX and then kind of on the inside now, it seems like there's more of a focus on educating the agent on how to handle these transactions than there was a few years ago.
Well, you can't do today's business with yesterday's methods and expect to be in business tomorrow. And what worked for us in 2005, 6, and 7 at the height of the market where we had tremendous number of buyers and not enough inventory, it's not the same and has not been the same for almost 5 years. I received a phone call 3 years ago from one of our top agents in Paradise Valley, Scottsdale area of Arizona, and she had traditionally handled only $1 million plus properties. And I knew her very well, and she said, there hasn't been $1 million price property sell in 6 months. I have got to change my business. And she told me about the CDPE course. I contacted Alex Charfin, who founded the designation, and challenged him to come to Denver, put the presentation on for me and several senior officers, and I promised him if we like it and it's as good as I've been hearing, we will become your champion and we will take it throughout the industry. And I said, if we don't like it, we'll tell our agents don't waste the money. He came in. The system was fabulous. By the end of the first day, I've been giving seminars for 40 years, and I looked at it and understood he has figured this thing out. He's got a step-by-step method, and we need to do this. And interestingly enough, we put it on our RE/MAX satellite network. We put it through our university. We put it into quarterly sales meetings throughout all the regions at both of our conventions each year, invited our competition to come and sit through the course and get their designation because, realtors have always been very cooperative. We need each other to sell each other's listings. And in less than 11 months, we got over 10,000 RE/MAX agents alone with the designation. Now that's up to 13,000.
And I think that's significantly more than any of the other real estate franchises, correct?
It's more than all the other real estate companies in the United States combined.
That's awesome. I'm actually going to have Alex on the show January 29th. Reached out to his people this week. Angela, my wife, has her CDP. A couple of our agents in our company do as well, and he's going to come on and talk to us about this as well. So it's a great opportunity for us to talk to him. Also, will be his first time on the show, and to answer questions that we've gotten from people about short sales, the process. And, one of the topics, that you mentioned in your predictions was improving the short sale process. And I'm already starting to see strides with that, but there's still a long way to go.
Well, it's a very difficult transaction. You've got three parties to any transaction. You've got the seller, you've got the lender, and you've got the realtor. Often the lender does not own the mortgage. They were securitized, bundled up, and sold all over the world. And so you have a seller and a realtor that get together, they get a buyer, they bring an offer to the bank. The bank doesn't have the delegated authority to make an instant decision. They must contact an investor someplace in China or Germany or some other godforsaken place. And all of a sudden what you find out is there's pushback, there's language barriers, there's bureaucracy and time problems. Over the last 3 years, RE/MAX and our senior staff have worked with the Treasury Department, with Fannie, Freddie, FDIC, HUD, and the top 10 banking organizations in the United States to see if we couldn't systemize it, streamline it, and make it better. And it has made leaps and bounds, but it's still a very lengthy process, but it is working and working better than it ever has before.
Well, Dave, I appreciate you being on with us today and talking to us, and we're going to continue our chat with the chairman and co-founder of RE/MAX, Dave Liniger, to answer some of the questions you've emailed to us and that you've posted on our Facebook page after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show.
Tampa Bay, if you want to know what's going on in the real estate market, tune in right here on Sundays at 10 a.m. on 970 WFLA for the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show.
We are back here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show, and we're continuing our conversation with Dave Liniger, chairman and co-founder of the RE/MAX organization. Dave has been so gracious with his time today, and we're talking about short sales. Dave, what do you think the banks can do to improve the process? What is it specifically that you see as, I know you mentioned, some of the communication breakdowns, but what are some things you think that are going to be on the way in terms of improvements?
Well, I think one of the things is that convincing a lender that actually owns the owns the mortgage that the short sale is a cost-effective way to deal with the problem. And as this process has continued the last 3 years, many of the overseas investors are figuring that out and giving the bank what they call implied authority to be able to negotiate for them within a certain range.
And again, it's just like we've talked about this a lot. And next week, we generally have our short sale law firm, the law firm of Yesner and Boss, on with us about once a month. And they're going to be on with us again next week. And it's a topic, obviously, that's pretty impactful in Tampa Bay with, more than half of the home sales being distressed properties. But in terms of the business decision on a short sale, for it to go all the way to foreclosure, they'll end up netting so much less money. I think they've realized that, look, this is the best possible outcome for us.
Yes, they're quite anxious to do the short sale process instead of taking the property over as an REO. The bank's advantage is it costs less, but the damages are less because the seller is still in the property. They don't vandalize it or anything. They take care of the property. And so the buyer gets a property in better condition. The bank loses less money, and the world can move on.
One of the things another opportunity I wanted to talk to you about, and you mentioned it because of the overseas investors that control some of the mortgages, the impact of global marketing on real estate. And RE/MAX really has it down there with global, the global RE/MAX.com website and some of your focused efforts to not only coordinate and help agents build relationships with other RE/MAX agents in other parts of the world, but to market our listings, across the world. What was it that really, had a mind shift for RE/MAX to really start paying attention more to the global aspect?
We really started expanding internationally with Canada back in 1980, and then we got into South Africa after apartheid was over, and then our overseas expansion in Europe really took off. So today, nearly 90 countries. Obviously, thousands of these individuals come to our conventions in the U.S. and have shown tremendous interest in bringing investment money into the United States. The current housing crisis, of course, has forced prices down so far that many types of residential real estate are absolute bargains, especially for people who are in economies like Canada that are really rolling along, and they need a place to put excess capital.
Now, and it's a great opportunity. I think that it's always been important for us locally, especially in Tampa Bay, because we're a destination market, to attract the world, not just, to market our properties as someone right down the street, but to make sure our properties get exposure to everyone in the world. And you guys' system for doing that is pretty sound. And I think it's important from the consumer's perspective when they're looking at hiring an agent. And obviously we're both proponents of RE/MAX with us owning our own RE/MAX franchise. But it's really important for the consumer to know, how are you going to get my Tampa Bay home exposed to the international audience? And a lot of companies don't have the broad-based reach that you guys do, not just from online marketing and the Wall Street Journal, but agent relationships. That's something that I've found in the first couple of months at RE/MAX is that, I've had agents reach out to me from Canada, from Europe, saying, hey, we want to buy property there. Help us. And it's remarkable.
Well, the thing that's interesting is global.remax.com, the news.com site we did internationally, came live for the most part 2 months ago. 60 countries of RE/MAX offices have their listings on it. However, it's also done in 30 different languages, and so anybody can look at American listings, look at it in their own language, in their own dollars. If it's German, they can look at it in marks. If they're from Brazil, they can look at it in reals. And so it's a very, very handy tool.
That's terrific. And Dave, we appreciate you, continuing to give us some insight. We've got a couple other topics we're going to talk to Dave after our news break, including, lower home ownership rates, the impact real estate investors locally and abroad have on the real estate market, and then some differences in the RE/MAX organization that we'll, let our listeners in on. So we will be right back after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show.
Help, I need somebody. Help, not just anybody. Help, I need someone. Help.
The Duncan Duo Real Estate Show. Now, your host, Andrew Duncan.
We are back here on the Duncan Duo Show. So excited to be having a conversation today with the chairman and co-founder of the RE/MAX organization, Dave Liniger. In case you're just tuning in now, Dave Liniger, the chairman and co-founder of RE/MAX, is talking to us today about his predictions for the real estate market in 2012, as well as answering a couple of questions that we've received on our Facebook fan page and via email. And Dave, I was just touching on something a little bit ago that I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about, luxury home marketing. You guys, obviously the market a couple of years ago shifted to the point where there wasn't a whole lot of luxury home sales, and now it seems like the luxury market's starting to roar back a little bit, at least here locally.
Yeah, the financing for it is loosening up just a bit more than what it was the last 2 or 3 years, but on the high end, wealthy people that still feel wealthy are starting to say, this is passing, it's okay, I can go ahead and spend more money than what I was planning on, and step up.
Right. They can take the risk and kind of move up, because that's the benefit of a market like this is, you may not get what you want out of the sale of your property, but you're getting it back with what you buy.
Yes. It's pretty obvious that there's probably never been a better time, probably as far as I've known in the last 40, 45 years, to be able to get a well-priced property.
And you guys, at RE/MAX, and something we're just learning more and more about the RE/MAX collection, from a luxury marketing standpoint, a fee-free structure for real estate agents to market luxury homes. How long have you guys been, really focused on the RE/MAX collection in terms of a separate portion of the brand?
We actually started that about 20 years ago, and then we changed the division to the collection that we have now approximately 6 years ago at the request of our high-end salespeople. They wanted unique signs, unique abilities to market their property that set them aside for distinctive type properties.
And one of the opportunities for exposure within the RE/MAX collection, some real estate companies have a different fee structure for their luxury division. And one of the things that was really impactful for me was that, as a company, RE/MAX sees the value in partnering with agents that focus on this business, but in also not nickeling and diming them with an additional fee for, providing something you guys can kind of leverage across a large network.
Well, the RE/MAX system was set up as a very entrepreneurial system, and we tried to set up a system where we put focus on the top producers, not necessarily the beginners or the part-timers or the lower producers, and that has worked out extremely well. Also interesting to note, the average agent has 8 years experience before they join RE/MAX, and so the agents that come to us already are working the higher end of the market.
Gotcha. So you're just plugging in a tool that they can improve upon from what they already know how to work the luxury market. It's something that they already do. This just helps improve their reach a little bit. And it's exciting, just to see that kind of turn in Tampa Bay. And talking about investors, if you're a real estate investor out there looking for an opportunity, we've set up a website for you at TampaBaySmokingDeals.com, where we host 50 of the best priced properties in Tampa Bay. Bay. Waterfront homes, luxury properties, short sales, foreclosures. We've even got a luxury waterfront property on there in South Tampa. It's a great opportunity that we just listed at $1.25 million a few weeks back. That's one of the best waterfront properties in South Tampa right now. But nonetheless, if you're looking as an investor, it's in Tampa Bay, go to TampaBaySmokingDeals.com. And Dave, 25% of home sales are investors, and in Tampa Bay, for example, it's even a little higher than that because of our attraction to the rest of the world.
Well, investors are unique buyers. They don't require mortgage financing in most cases. They are paying cash. They're not worried about appraisals and property inspections. And so it's a great customer to buy or work with for your seller.
And I think internationally, just like we mentioned a little bit ago, the person that's in Canada that's looking at prices now in Tampa Bay that may have looked 5 years ago says, wow, it's on sale right now. It's like bargain bin shopping.
Well, the foreign investor is very, very important to us in this market, especially in markets like the Sunbelt areas or Florida. We've lost some of the market that we used to have of people in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, who wanted to sell the old house and move and retire to Florida because many of them are upside down in their mortgages.
Right.
They don't have an equity right now, and so that part of our market went away. At the same time, the foreign investors are coming in very strongly, especially Canadians to Florida. If they're Eastern Canadians, they love Florida. If they're Western Canadians, usually they want to go to the California, Nevada, Phoenix area.
Specifically for the Florida market, for all of our listeners out there, certainly some real estate agents and people from around, the globe that may be listing, what do you think is going to happen in Florida in 2012? Obviously the short sales and foreclosures are going to have an impact, but, what is your take on, what we might see in the Sunshine State in 2012?
Well, I think you're going to see a greater volume of purchasers. There is no question that the interest of foreign people is very high, especially from the Caribbean and South America. We opened over 100 offices in 1 year in Brazil, and it's just absolutely amazing to see Brazilians coming into the Florida market. I mean, it's even fun to go watch them shop. And, they're taking 8 and 10 boxes of stuff back home with them. And all the talk about the United States, and we get a black eye sometimes from the rest of the world, but in reality, our money and our treasury bills and our real estate are considered bargains worldwide. We are a very, very safe country, and a lot of people in their countries are looking at it and saying, well, we're in a boom time now, but we've always seen these cycles, and there's a flight to safety. That's why people are so anxious to buy real estate in Florida.
Yeah, and you're right. And that's what we're seeing. We get calls and emails and inquiries on our websites just about every single day from people that are looking here, whether it's a RE/MAX agent in another part of the world introducing someone to us, or just a consumer that finds our websites organically or just searching. It's pretty common right now. People looking for that opportunity. You mentioned in your video, and for those of you that haven't seen the video, you can go to youtube.com/RE/MAX INTL. You can also look for us, the Duncan Duo, on YouTube, and we've got the video on there with Dave's predictions for 2012. You mentioned the use of mobile and social media being highly important for real estate agents in 2012. Touch on that a little bit for me, if you would.
Well, social media has literally taken over the world, and it is a great way for people to stay in touch with each other. Now, the one thing we tell real estate agents is don't just talk real estate when you're doing social media. People want to know about you, your friends, your hobbies, your vacations, and so on. But real estate is always a topic of interest on everybody's part. So we had a independent survey done last summer by a company called Sinovate. And Sinovate talked to over 1,000 actual home buyers and sellers over the previous 11 months in the 48 contiguous United States. And it was interesting. They followed these people and said, and they looked statistically at them as to how did they approach like Facebook. And Remax.com was the number one visited website that people left Facebook from and went to as a real estate site. And that shows you the tremendous interest on people. They'll hear something about real estate, they'll be discussing it amongst friends on Facebook, and then they'll leave Facebook, click on Remax.com, and start researching.
And it's funny because, we have an active Facebook profile and fan pages and things like that. But I think it's interesting how often we actually get contacted by people that, maybe see a client of ours with a testimonial. We do testimonial videos with a lot of our clients, after they've helped us buy or sell a home. If they're willing, of course, they sit down with us and record a quick little 1 or 2 minute video. And some of our clients will post those on their Facebook page, and it's such valuable insight and information because what you're basically saying is your friend used us, and it's been great for our business. Just kind of that social aspect of people talking about you, and then your friends that use you telling their friends about that, and I think real estate agents that improve upon that will continue to be successful.
The number one source of business for successful realtors has always been repeat customers and referrals because of the trust that has already been established. The fascinating aspect of Facebook is if you give good service, it gets reported and passed around. If you give bad service, it really gets reported and passed around.
Absolutely. It's very important. So, you one of the topics of your video was speeding up the recovery. And, one of your topics was jobs. Obviously with the political climate, what it is, there's a lot of people talking about different objectives for, the job front. What's your take on that?
Well, the real problem on jobs is the tremendous government bureaucracy that stands in the way of doing things. Obviously, most of us have environmental concerns, and we want to make sure that our way of life, clean air, clean water, and so on continues. However, if there's so much bureaucracy and deadlines are set up a year for projects to take place. For instance, trying to bring the pipeline from Canada with oil to America. And they've already said we're either going to bring it to America or we'll take it to the ocean and we'll send it to China. And when you study problems to death, and it takes 3 and 5 and 7 years to put projects into place, all you're doing is holding up tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of jobs. The government has got to get out of the way of the free enterprise system. Obviously, we need safeguards, but to study problems to death is not the solution.
Yeah, and, it's interesting you bring up the government bureaucracy, and, in the last segment of our show that we'll continue with after a quick break is, talking about refinancing underwater loans and sound and reasonable lending standards, which, again, I think from, what we'll talk about in the last 5 minutes of the show, people will see a lot of that is that kind of government bureaucracy causing challenges with things.
Yes.
So, again, we'll be right back with Dave Liniger, the chairman and founder of the RE/MAX organization, after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show.
Hey, back with Andrew hosting the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show on 970 AM WFLA. The real estate expert in Tampa, Andrew Duncan of the Duncan Duo, 10 a.m. on 970 WFLA.
So we're back here on 970, continuing our conversation with the chairman and co-founder of the RE/MAX organization, Dave Liniger. And Dave, we talked about speeding up the recovery and kind of some of the government bureaucracy. What's your take on this new HARP 2.0 program that's kind of been announced about refinancing the underwater loans?
Well, I think it's incredibly important to be able to do so. The banks that are having strategic defaults and people are walking away are losing more money in that fashion than they would if they were to refinance the mortgages and let people get in at a much lower interest rate. There's people out there stuck at 8% that are upside down that are still making their payments, and the bank would be much wiser to let them refinance at today's rates and keep them in the property, and eventually everybody does better.
You're right, because people out there that have 6 and 7 and 8% interest rates that for one reason or another can't refinance, typically because the equity isn't in the property. It doesn't make sense sometimes from a business standpoint. That's why you see a lot of them strategically defaulting, and this new program is meant to remove that appraisal provision, just to lower the rate and not worry about the equity position because they're on the hook for the loan anyway.
Sure.
So sound, reasonable lending standards, it's been a challenge that we've seen in the market the last couple of years when we kind of had the recession hits and the economy started, really struggling and the mortgage lenders, took so many steps and not just the mortgage lenders, but the banks, the investors, they took, steps to protect, their interest, but some people believe that, their steps are just taken far too far and they kind of went on the complete opposite extreme of where it was, back in 2005 when if you had a pulse and a 500 credit score, you could get a loan. What do you think some changes to that, that could be helpful, in terms of, reestablishing reasonable lending standards?
Well, the Federal Reserve has already come out in the last week and said that the banks must loosen up their lending. They're saying that the pendulum has swung too far the other way. Obviously, we used to have a pretty good system. VA, no money down, almost no defaults. FHA, 3% to 10% down. Again, very little default rates. And what has happened was the lunacy of the subprime mess in the mid-2000s of no qualifying, don't ask, don't tell, just write a slip of paper and say you make this much money was on the lunatic fringe.
Yeah.
And so now we've gone too far the other way of making it impossible for some people.
Yep.
The feds are going to push this very, very hard because we must have a real estate recovery to have an economic recovery.
No question about it. Accurate appraisals being a part of that too. As an organization, what's RE/MAX take on how to improve the appraisal process to get valuations, more accurate?
Well, when you take a look at, you have two offers on a property for a specific amount of money with two investors competing trying to buy it, that is the market.
Right.
That is what the property should appraise at.
It's funny. We talk about that a lot. We create bidding wars on some of our listings and then sometimes we'll have problems with the appraisal. And my opinion of the market value of anything is what someone will pay for it. If, no matter what the comps show, if someone's willing to pay that number, that's the market value.
That's right. And if more than one person is willing to pay that number, that really sets the market.
Right. And I think that, some of that certainly is taken into consideration. We've had appraisers that have reached out to us, and by no means am I blasting the appraisal industry because I don't think it's appraisers. I think it's the management companies and the banks that are putting pressures and restrictions on them. But, we've had some great appraisers we've worked with that have said, hey, look, if you show me that you had multiple offers on it, I can certainly, add that to my report and things like that because that, again, it's supply and demand, and if you have more than one person willing to buy it, that's the truest way of telling you it's worth that. So, Dave, I greatly appreciate you tuning in with us and answering some questions and talking about your outlook for the 2012 real estate market. And thanks so much for joining us. And we'll certainly look forward to seeing you in March at the Las Vegas R4 convention and spending some time with you there as well. So thanks so much. We've had Dave Liniger, the chairman and co-founder of the RE/MAX organization, on with us for the last hour or so. The show will actually be on our website. If you're interested in downloading the podcast or listening to it later, you can check out our website at theduncanduo.com. We'll make sure to post it on our Facebook fan page and our YouTube channel as well with a couple of video tidbits for you. So again, just search for theduncanduo.com. If you search for that, I don't think you'll have a hard time finding us. And again, next week we'll have the law firm Yesner & Boss with us talking about some legal ramifications with short sales, some changes in that arena. And then the following week, we're going to be talking to Aaron Davis from Hillsborough Title, Brian Thomas from Tamlin Homes, and we'll have Nikki Conway on from RE/MAX down in the Sarasota market for a market update there as well. So thanks so much for tuning in to the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show. We'll be here next Sunday at 10 to answer your real estate questions live and talk to you about the local real estate market.